And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Again, I'm like an old man. I can't just stream right with actually have sound on my mic. Yeah, sorry. But I deleted that stream. It's as if it never happened. But anybody's joining after that, I'm sorry about that. But the topic of this video is, can we finally collect Pokemon cards again? And the reason why I titled it this way is because right now the hobby's in just super comfortable spot, and it's been a long time since we've just been in a comfortable area of Pokemon where nothing's going absolutely crazy. Everything that is kind of going up in money. It makes sense. Things are getting a little bit older set wise. And, chase cards, we're looking at what the chases are doing, and PSA 10 prices are starting to drop a little bit and stuff like this. And, you know, just as recently as today, Pokemon TCG drops on Twitter. If you guys are not subscribed to Pokemon TCG drops on Twitter again, highly recommend you subscribe to him. He's been on my channel for a live in the past for an interview. He's a great dude. But just today, he posted booster boxes of Silver Tempest for 134. He posted booster boxes of Astral Radiance for 117. Like, those are comfortable prices. Not gonna get in at your lowest possible dollar amount to try to stonk out and make a ton of money on a product. No, it's not like that. It's just a comfortable spot. And I feel like it's been so long since we've just finally been able to say that. And then I look at the most recent set, Scarlet and Violet. What are prices doing for some of these big chase cards? Sure, probably like the two bigger ones is the Merriam Alt Art and the Merriam Full Art. Now, the PSA 10 prices versus the raw prices are still pretty drastic, but the full art is selling for right between $20 and $25 for the non-alternative art one. And in a PSA 10, there's still a ton of meat on the bone there. You could still sell it for like 125. And then the Merriam Alt Art is around $70 ish for the raw card, and that card's selling right now around $315 for sold, at auction. That's comfortable. That's like a really good spot. Listen, why do those margins exist? Why are people able to still do that? I don't really know. I've said it before. You should never be buying modern PSA 10s. You should always be selling modern PSA 10s. But with that said, somebody put a great comment on my last video, and his name was Eric Drinks Water. Yes, it's a great name, Eric Drinks Water. So toast to you, Eric. But Eric asked a question on my last live, and it's the most recent comment. You can go read it. He said, "What do you think about CGC nines selling for less than $10 at auction?" And he talks about ZNG's most recent auctions. And if you don't believe me, you can go on ZNG's most recent auctions and just search for items that sold for less than $10. There's a lot of graded cards up there, mainly CGC, and CGC 9s opposed to anything else. So he asked a question, is it good, like, can I start buying these? And that doesn't really go like with what I say, because what I say is you never should be buying modern 10s. Now the question is, should you be buying modern 9s though? See, it's interesting. And the whole CGC argument right now is still an interesting one. Because when you look at what CGC prices cost for grading, you still got to spend about $15 to have your card graded. The prices for these cards, there's definitely not the margins as PSA. PSA has a little longer turnaround times, but I would say to most people, hey, listen, if you're going to grade with CGC and you really like the slab and you really like the grading card company and you don't care about the margin, you don't care about selling that card, sure, go ahead. Send your cards at CGC. Honestly, CGC has a better slab than PSA. I've said it in the past. But the fact is, if you want to sell that card, you should always be sending the PSA because you get the margin, and the 10 rates is a little bit easier. While yes, CGC 10 rates have become a lot more lax, they're still tougher to get than a PSA 10, and especially if you get hit with like a 9.5. 9.5 is like getting kicked in the nuts pretty much. So, but that's what I always say. If you are strictly a collector. Now, what I don't understand is looking at those ZNG Emporium auctions and you see somebody selling a CGC Modern 9 Because that throws that whole argument out the window, right? Because the argument I just said was if you're grading that card for your personal collection with no intention to sell it, but you see these graded modern cards selling at auction, so that means the person that graded this card sold it, or excuse me, graded it with the sole intention to sell it. And it just doesn't make sense, right? It's like, you know how much money you're leaving on the table by grading with this other grading card company opposed to PSA. Like, why are you doing this? So I am a little confused by that. But to go back to Eric Drinks Water's question, his question was, is it okay to start buying those cards in a 9 for sub $10? And my answer to him is going to be, yeah, it's fine. Because at this point, I think you're buying those cards as part of your personal collection. And there's a lot of people out there who do not, you know, keep tens in their personal collection because, truthfully, tens are very expensive. When you look at a modern 9 versus a modern 10, it sometimes you have to do a double or triple look to really see like why that card hit at the 9 opposed to the 10. So if you are being more of a value collector, hell yeah, 9s are the way to go. And when you start to think personal collection pieces and you start to say, okay, if I'm going to spend $15 for this card and $5 to $10 to pick it up raw, I'm going to be all into that card for 25, and I might wind up with that 9 anyways. So if you could pick that card up for 10 as part of your personal collection, yeah, go for it. And that's why I say, can we finally start collecting Pokemon cards again? And the answer might be, I think the answer was always yes, we could, but I think the market was just too absolutely ridiculous, and the prices were too unrealistic. The prices were all overhyped. It was so much easier to sell. You know, even going back a few months ago. But now we're finally just getting to a relaxing, calming timeline. Now this is the thing too. This relaxing, calming timeline could be very, very temporary. We might see a lot of these booster boxes, especially for this modern stuff, start to run away if a few things happen. One, if the reprints we are expecting just never come, which is becoming more and more likely daily. I was definitely hedging on way more reprints coming than we're seeing. We saw a very, very small reprint of Brilliant Stars, but it's almost nothing. And when you listen to a guy like Mason from Cardinal Gaming, he talks about like 130 from distribution to pick up those booster boxes. Like, that's not doing anything to the secondary market, not pulling down these prices. And then all these other sets, you know, I do get worried. Like when I look at Astro Radiance, and I told you at the time of recording the video today, Pokemon TCG Drops put up Astro Radiance booster boxes from Safari Zone at 117. And again, Silver Tempest at 134. So I get nervous when I think of sets like those with reprints. I'm like, man, if Astro Radiance is sitting on Safari Zone at 117, Silver Tempest is 134, I don't want to see reprints of these because then you might get beat up. But guess what? It's not really happening. So can we finally collect Pokemon cards again? And the answer is yes. And a lot of these cards, there's a lot of stuff being opened up right now. There's a ton of raw cards on the market right now. If you do like to pick up raw cards, now's the time. There's some of the cheapest buying opportunities I've seen in a very long time. And either one or two things is happening. One, people are just not seeing the margins to grade these cards themselves, so they're kind of pulling back a little bit. Or they're just maybe got burned doing those CGC 9 plays, and then they just realize, like, maybe that's not the way I want to go. Which, thank God they're finally realizing that. But, you know, can it be a temporary common? Yeah, it could be. Because we could also see the 151 set go crazy. And I got a little nervous, too, thinking about Crown Zenith. Well, first, Silver Tempest was a good set. But then Crown Zenith was such a monster set. And all the chase cards and all those alternative art cards that everybody was kind of waiting for, Crown Zenith had it. Crown Zenith had one of the best, and you could possibly go on a limb and say the best pack opening experience of all of Sword and Shield. Now, I would say before that, for just pack opening experience, it was probably Celebrations, because Celebrations, just every single pack felt like it had a hit in it. The only difference is Celebrations was just such a small set. So that pack opening experience very quickly like cooled off with celebrations, because with a 25 card main set and then a 25 card like chase set, don't get me wrong, celebrations was fun. It was the most fun to open for me, but it loses its luster relatively quick. But then Crown Zenith, on the other hand, it had a great pack opening experience. It seemed like you could just, it actually made you want to open up cards again. And there's been a while where I just haven't wanted to, because I think the sets were just mediocre, or if the sets weren't mediocre, there was just a couple chase cards I knew I wanted, so I would just go out on the secondary market and pick up just the chase cards. Now, coming into Scarlet and Violet, it's hit or miss. You know, some people are going to take it, some people are going to leave it when it comes to the chase cards, but at least for pack opening experience, like, it's still okay. You know, pull rates seem to be much easier than they have for some, you know, relatively recent sets in the past. And when I say relatively recently, you can only go back to like August of 2021 and think about how impossibly hard Evolving Skies pull rates were. Like, Evolving Skies being one of the best, if a lot of people's best set of Sword and Shield, when it comes to pack opening experience, Evolving Skies was not fun. And if you don't believe me, you could look at the thousands upon thousands of packs of Evolving Skies that rattle open and watch those streams. Don't get me wrong. You still hit some of those big evolutions. You hit those big chase cards. Yeah, it's worth it. But with the exception of that, I mean, a person can only pull so many Garbodor. It's just at the end of its tether, right? So some of these pack opening experience aren't, that great. But I don't know. So when Eric drinks water and he asks those questions, is it okay to pick up some CGC nines for sub $10? My answer is gonna be yeah, man. Like, go for it, do it if you want it, because at this point you're not the one grading that card. You're definitely not buying modern tens. You're just buying, you know, well valued modern nines for, and I'm guessing this is part of your personal collection. And I think it's very important that everybody out there doesn't lose sight of like why most, if not all of us, are in Pokemon. And I think the line does get grayed a little bit, or it gets a little convoluted or a little skewed because of like what I mentioned a little bit earlier in this video, that for a certain point in this hobby, like, it was kind of foolish not to be looking at the investability selling money aspect, because everything was just overvalued for a lot of this stuff. Not everything, but some of it was. You know, the big ones are the ones we beat to death with a stick until they asked, they put their hands up and they say, I can't take any more. And that's your first edition Pikachus and Eevees from Jungle. Like, yes, that horse is dead. It's been beaten to death. But we bring it up all the time because, there were cards like that existed out there, that there's a reason why we talk about those all the time. And it didn't make sense to hold on to any of that stuff. It only made sense to sell stuff like that. And there's a lot of retraces going on, especially when it comes to like the vintage market, especially when it comes to the modern graded market. Like, a lot of these, I mean, when you talk about modern, well, first vintage, there's a ton of stuff that retraced. Look at all your first edition cards, with the exception of like a couple of your big outliers. Recently, as recently as yesterday, TCA Gaming sold first edition Raichu in a PSA 10. It was like a 2-3 cert, so it was pretty old cert, but it sold for like $6,900. Now, $6,900 historically pre-2020, that's still like an all-time high. Keep in mind, we didn't ever see the first ever sale of that card for greater than $8,000 until 2020. And say what you want about the man, the first person to ever sell that card for greater than $8,000 was Collectible Guru. Out of all the people in the world, he was the first person to actually, break greater than $8,000 on that first edition Raichu. But now, to see that price retrace down to right below $7,000, that's still a very high price. Now, for it to be the most recent sale of that card, it's probably not a comfortable spot for the, other 87 people. Well, there's 87 total PSA 10 copies. So for the other 86 people out there holding on to one of those Raichus, like, maybe it doesn't feel great. But you got to look at a lot of people's original entry points on a card like that. It's drastically lower. And $7,000, right around $7,000 for that card, is still a super healthy, strong price. So you gotta like take the good with the bad, and then you look at some of these like crazy modern cards. You know, you look at like your Burning Shadows Charizard, and you look at like what did the first black label of that card sell for? What is that card sitting at now? You look at the hyper rare Chunkachu from Vivid Voltage. You look at where those original sales were selling at, where are those sales selling now? So, you know, you take the good with the bad, and you know, but all around, you need calming periods. Now, it could be super short lasted. 151 set is right around the corner. There is a very strong likelihood that when 151 set comes out, the market just goes absolutely crazy again. And you talk about a set that's going to have potentially like that big nostalgic tie to get a lot of people back in. Look at the sets that really were like defining for people, that got people back into the hobby. I think there's two sets that stick out probably for most people above all others, especially when you listen to people. You'll hear the first set a lot of people will talk about that was the set that really got them back into Pokemon is Evolutions. Evolutions, again, reprint of base set, and the reason why it's a reprint of base set is because it's got all that 151 feel to it. And then you hear a lot of people talk about like another set that either got them back into Pokemon or one of the biggest reasons that they started buying Modern, and that's Hidden Fates. What did Hidden Fates have? The original 151 Pokemon. So you got Evolutions got people back in, Hidden Fates got more people back in 2 years later, and then here we are a couple years after the fact. And then you got potentially the 151 set coming out with all that Gen 1 nostalgia feels again. All the people that maybe were deep into Pokemon at the height of heights and the booms and booms and maybe got out at the end of Sword and Shield, maybe missed just the beginning of Scarlet and Violet. You get a set like 151 comes out and just pulls them right back in. Like, this is stuff you need. Now, there's always that argument. We talk about it all the time. You always hear people say, well, listen, I'm tired of 151. I want to see Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5 Pokemon. And I think that time is coming. It's just, we're not there just yet. And, you know, a set like a 151 set, this does feel like Pokemon's way to say, like, all right, guys, like, once in a while, we're going to throw you absolute bones. And this is one of those times. And recently, Pokemon has been doing that. If you really think about it, Pokemon is just throwing people bones once in a while. It's like, here's a couple thank yous. One of the biggest thank yous that Pokemon has done recently is Celebrations was a big thank you. I think for a 25th anniversary set, like, Celebrations gave us a lot of things we were asking for. A lot of people always wanted to see Gold Stars come back. They gave people the Gold Star back, especially with the Umbreon. 17 out of 17, Pop Series 5. You know, a lot of people were pretty bummed out that they didn't get the Venusaur. They didn't get the Blastoids from Evolutions. So what did Celebrations do? It gave you the Charizard again, but it also gave you that Venusaur, also gave you that Blastoids. And then, you know, for the Delta Species fan, they did some awesome, like, Delta Species cards, especially, like, the tin promos with the Mimikyu. And then, you know, there was a couple level X's they threw in. They even reintroduced level X's with, like, the Zacian, made the Zacian, or was it the Zamazenta was a level X? No, I think it was the Zamazenta, but still. And then they threw a couple bones with, like, Prime cards and stuff like that. And, you know, they hit the real hard, like, early playability with, like, the Cleffa from Neo Genesis and stuff like this. Like, they threw you a bone with Celebrations. But then when it came to, like, throwing people a little bit of, like, that financial bone, they put on Pokemon Center Special Delivery Charizard. And what did they do with the Special Delivery Charizard? They made it as readily available as people possibly wanted. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of people botted those codes, and the people that were selling those codes, those people cleaned up. You look at, like, how many Special Delivery Charizard codes some of these people sold. I mean, they were in the thousands. And it was great because there was a race to the bottom on eBay until eventually we saw codes sitting, you know, right around $5. So then you would just go on eBay, pick up your Special Delivery Charizard code, spend your $20 on Pokemon Center, and you got Pokemon throwing you a bone. That was a free card. You only had to spend $20, and that card all day was selling for greater than $20. Like, that's actually one of the very, very few cards that would be next to impossible to lose money on. Like, you could have, in theory, like, especially PSA 9s at some point, but You get lucky, you get a nice centered one and you send it off, you get a 10. You know, that card at the peak, at the high, was selling for $1,000. How? I don't know. But those were real confirmed sales. Multiple sales at 700, multiple sales at 600, multiple sales at 5 and 4 and 3, and then to at this point they're sitting, you know, a little around $150. $150 still for a free card. Like, that was Pokemon throwing people bones, and once in a while Pokemon does that. This 151 set has that possibility. That could potentially be another bone that Pokemon is throwing people, where it's just like, listen, if you pick up 151, you're probably going to do pretty good. And especially if Pokemon does underprint this, which, to say the word Pokemon and underprinting in 2023 probably shouldn't be a sentence people should be saying, because you would have thought that Pokemon acquiring print facilities and Pokemon putting out their cryptid tweet and updating it every what seems like 48 hours and saying, listen, we understand that product is scarce and we're printed to max capabilities. Whatever printing the max capabilities means, because it seems to be very, very poorly done. Don't get me wrong, the supply shortages of Pokemon cards is drastically better today than it was, say, at the crazy booms, which was 2020, 2021, where all your Walmarts and Target shelves were scalped daily. At least you could walk into these stores and buy them, or you could go on to PokemonCenter.com and at least get, you know, product online. Like, that's still possible. But you know, when you come to like some of these bigger products, especially when you're talking about like booster boxes and stuff, there's no booster boxes to be found. Booster boxes are very, very scarce. Now, we could be running into this issue again, and I talk about it all the time. We are in the niches, and then when you get into the niches of the niches, and to be honest with you, I'm going to say this 100% transparency. There's probably just not a lot of people out there who would even consider buying a booster box of a set, let alone some of the people in this chat or some of the people watching this video real time or after the fact who are picking up positions in booster boxes. And what positions could be multiple of single booster boxes or potentially cases. That is a very small subset of this hobby that's probably picking up cases of booster boxes. So when we say that there's a booster box shortage, we could sometimes throw that a little bit. We could throw those words around a little bit too strong. So, but yeah, you know me. I've been trying to do shorter lives. We're 23 minutes into this live, so now I'm going to go down, read the chat. I do want to, again, sorry to everybody who tuned in at the first live when my mic wasn't on. You figured I, you know, only go live. I barely ever pre-record a video anymore. So you think I would at least understand how to turn my mic on, but wasn't even able to do that. But real quick, you got number 1 mod in the game, Drew. Good to see you, Drew. You got Pokey Snipes, Chuck D, Jumble Fitz. We got Mr. Rattle Pokemon. He said, PK, no mic again. Oh, can you imagine? I just been ranting for 23 minutes with no mic on. Peaked Out Chew says, what up, PK? Missed you in Dallas, man. Hope you're well. Yeah, Peak, I really want to go to the Collecticon Dallas, but my wife's due like any day now, so I just couldn't. That would be way too big of a risk for me to go there. And you know, if she went early with the baby or anything, like, to be in Dallas, that's not as simple as just hopping in the car and driving home. That's plane rides and everything like that. But I saw a couple of the photos. It looked like people had a lot of fun at Dallas Collecticon. But I will be at the Charlotte Collecticon, so that would be a good one. Science Guy 87 said, PK, I have a submission coming back from PSA, and I hit some great stuff. That's good, man. It always feels good when you get a good PSA return. And it always feels good, too, when you get that upcharge email. I know a lot of people don't like that upcharge email, but when you see it come through, you just like, okay, let's go. And then you look at it, and usually when PSA actually does hit you with an upcharge, like, that card deserves it. So when you do get that email, it feels pretty damn good. And then you're just really, really quick to accept those upcharges so you can get that card back. That's a good feeling. I know a lot of people don't love that feeling, but I do. But I will be honest with you, especially more recently than not, is I had a lot of stuff that should have probably been upcharged just sneak through. So while it it's like a double-edged sword in a way. So like it does feel really good too when you don't get an upcharge, assuming your card should have been upcharged. So I guess you can play devil's advocate there, yes. So you do want the email, but then you also don't want the email. Oh. Let's see. Oh, people are talking about the podcast with Rattle and Ryan. He said he guessed that Rattle saying he's probably the 19th or 26th, but we haven't discussed. It'll probably have to be the 19th because I don't think my wife's going to make it to the 26th. The baby is really measuring really big right now. I think for her last growth scan, the baby was measuring at like 90th percentile, so I'll be surprised if the baby went full term. But baby's already seems healthy, so I mean, nobody wants to like to give birth before the due date, but the baby is big. He's big. Jumbo Fit says, PK, how much money do you spend on shipping in a month? Double because of you, Fitz. We got Big Steve in here. Good to see you. Andy on Guam. Yeah. The podcast is the number one ranked Pokemon podcast in Guam, so we always got that going for us. Coda says Crown Zenith is greater than Celebrations. Say that now. I'll be interested to see 5 years from now what do people say. I love the argument too because we were spoiled with Sword and Shield when you think about it. Sword and Shield had some great sets. And did it start off on a little bit of a lag? Yeah. Sword and Shield base, Rebel Clash, Darkness Ablaze. People were still crazy about Darkness Ablaze with that VMAX Charizard. Wasn't for me, luckily. Not a big Charizard chase guy. But I did like Vivid Voltage. Chunkachu, I love that full art Pikachu with the pink background border. It was like my personal chase in that set. Love that card. Real quick, Quack Farm, appreciate the super chat, man. He said, "Sup PK, I feel so bad missing the last podcast. Life's been hectic. Probably going to be busy with work during the next, but keep up the great work and congrats on the new one coming. Hang in there, brother." Yeah, Quack. Dude, I talk about it all the time, and I talked about it on just like every video recently. And when you talk about life's been busy, dude, life is so busy. Especially with the new baby, with Pokemon, with eBay, with just work, with life in general. Oh, painting. I had already talked about this on my last live, but Quack, man, just painting bedrooms and then building furniture and everything we are building. It's all like that Wayfair shit. And it's like, sure, it looks nice. Real clean corners, clean edges. Like everything looks new. It looks clean. But it's all just crap. It's not crap, but you know it's that Wayfair, IKEA type stuff. Like everything is just like a weird bolt and you put like a screw thing in and you twist it and but yeah, that's just been my life. And then building that swing set I talked about on one of my last lives. We got my firstborn son a swing set and I had 3 of my buddies come over in the backyard, like full 9-hour day between the 3 of us trying to figure out the directions, building this swing set. Yeah, life definitely gets in the way. But going back to the original thought that I had I finished on Vivid Voltage, but yeah, after Vivid Voltage too, Battle Styles, like, people shit on Battle Styles now, and they say, oh, it's an Urshifu set, but it's not an Urshifu set, man. It's a Sleepy Tea set. That Sleepy Tea, bringing back alternative art cards, and the reason why I say bringing back alternative art cards, because really we did kind of see them at the end of Sun and Moon. The one that sticks out in my head, like, one of my favorite alternative art type chase cards is that Blastoise and Piplup from Cosmic Eclipse. But, when you look at Sword and Shield, alternative arts is going to be one of the things that defines this generation. Or, the things that people really sit back and talk about. But when you look at Battle Styles had alternative arts. And then Chillin' Rain was again, a set that didn't have a great pack opening experience because the pull rates were so impossibly tough. And, when you think about Chillin' Rain, that's why it's called Chillin' Pain, because it was that green and white code card era. There were no character rare subsets or anything. Chill and Rain, when you look at the set list and when you opened up your Chill and Rain ETB and you pulled up the set list and you looked at all the hits, you're like, wow, this set has everything. But it didn't. It was sucked to open. It was really tough to open. Sure, like the Galarian Birds and the Moltres and stuff like this and the Calyrex and stuff. It's like, take them or leave them. But it was a tough set to open. But then moving into like Evolving Skies and then, your Brilliant Stars and stuff like this. And Brilliant Stars brings back character rare subsets. And it's like, well, and even before that, like Fusion Strike and stuff like this. We were spoiled. We were definitely spoiled in Sword and Shield. And like even going back and looking at specialty sets and you think about Champion's Path. Champion's Path at the time was hyped. Like it sucked again to open because there was only 2 chase cards to it, the 2 Charizards. But then moving out of Champion's Path and looking at Shining Fates, people were in love with Shining Fates. The hype that was there for Shining Fates, people were talking about Shining Fates as being like one of the greatest sets ever Pokemon is going to put out. And the hype kind of died down for Shining Fates, but at the time, people were loving it. And I think when we look back on Shining Fates, I think people will look back on it fondly. The same way people kind of look back on Hidden Fates, but Hidden Fates hasn't really moved much. Shining Fates hasn't really moved much. Champion's Path has moved, especially in like the sealed product because of those ETBs. And listen, when you look at that Champion's Path ETB, you could say what you want about the set. That ETB has everything going for it. That ETB hits the right boxes. Shining Fates with a EV on the front, EVV max, like, take it or leave it. But then moving out of Shining Fates, again, Celebrations, great set. Crown Zenith, great set. So, Sword and Shield was great. And then even at the end of Sword and Shield, sure, Astral Radiance, but then look at like Lost Origin. Lost Origin is up there as one of the best Sword and Shield sets. But more importantly, if you were to take Lost Origin and remove it out of the Sword and Shield block and then just throw Lost Origins up against like all other sets in the history of Pokemon, like Lost Origin is far superior to almost all sets. Now, it's not really a fair 1-to-1, especially when you look at these more vintage sets and you look at like what are your chase cards, what can you pull, and it could potentially only have 1 to 2 chase cards, period. Or especially when you go back and you start looking at like some of these early black and white sets and you have, you look at just black and white base and, Reshiram and Zekrom and then the secret rare Pikachu and like that's it for black and white base. Or, like the Tornadus or the Thundurus for Emergent Powers. Like you look back on these sets and there's nothing there. So removing out of Sword and Shield timeline and you put a set like Lost Origin, when you start going back into late Sun and Moon, it gets a little bit tougher, but put Lost Origin against any of the early Sun and Moon sets, blows it out of the water. Any of these XY sets, blows all these XY sets out of the water. Again, XY sets, there were some good like sets in there, especially when you look at the ones that everyone kind of knows are good. When you look at the Flash Fire because it had a couple Charizards in it, or you look at like your Phantom Forces, like sure, those were good sets, but compared to like Sword and Shield, end of Sword and Shield block, how good are they really? And then but again, it's hard to do that comparison. That's why you probably shouldn't even ever do those comparisons. Start to compare Sword and Shield sets with these older sets because it's just a different timeline, different release. Like, but it is interesting to look at this kind of stuff. So we are very spoiled with Sword and Shield. So to have a set like Silver Tempest, not Silver Tempest, Scarlet and Violet base, like people are talking about it as being kind of a lackluster set, but it's not though. It still has that character rare subset. It still has great chases to it. It still is introducing the Gen 9 Pokemon. It is all around good set. And especially when it comes to base sets. You go back, there's not a lot of great base sets. Sword and Shield base, meh. Sun and Moon, meh. XY base, Blastoise, Venusaur, Full Art, meh. Again, black and white, Reshiram, Zekrom, Secret Rare Pikachu, good. then you go back and then you start looking at like Heart Gold Soul Silver base. Heart Gold Soul Silver base, banger set. So you literally have to go from Scarlet and Violet base, and the last really good base set you get is all the way back to Heart Gold Soul Silver base. That's a lot of sets in between. That is a decade. That's greater than a decade worth of timeline. Heart Gold Soul Silver base is 2009 timeline. So it took 2009 all the way up to 2023 to get a really good base set again. So we are spoiled. So but this is the thing too, and this is that age-old question that has been, pondered and asked a lot lately. How does Pokemon keep it going? We say that every set, right? Like, how do they keep the hype? How do they keep it going? And so far, I think Pokemon's doing a good job. And, you don't want to throw everything out there at the very beginning, especially for a base set. And I think Pokemon still has so much to work with. And it would be funny that if, like, the 151 set ends up being one of the weaker performing sets of Scarlet and Violet, which I don't personally think will happen, but who the hell knows? Like, I can't make that guess because there's just way too much time from all the sets that aren't released. But let's just say 151 set ends up being one of the poor performer Scarlet and Violet sets, right? If 151 is an underperformer, that means we have so much more to look forward to for these later Scarlet and Violet sets. And if that's the case, and 151 ends up being overshadowed by these other sets, dude, that would be a great thing for this hobby. That would be a great thing for Pokemon. And I hope that happens. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back up real quick. Got Mick Nick. Good to see you, bud. Chavals says, wait, hold on. Says the Poketime seems a good price for the current market. Long term, who knows? He doesn't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the question was. Dark Lava Lizard says you should have Jake on your channel. Jake, are you talking Jake from, not Jake from Pokenomics, Jake from, oh my god, Twice Baked Jake? Yeah, I would like to have Twice Baked Jake on the channel. I don't know if he would. I don't think I've ever seen Twice Baked Jake on a podcast before. I don't think I've ever seen him outside of his channel. So it'd be interesting to hear from a dude like that and hear some of his thoughts into the hobby. See if he understands the reach he really has for his channel. Because there were some videos he made where there was immediate market reaction to some of his videos, especially when he started talking about full art trainers and cards like this. He swayed the market whether he meant to or not. So I'm always interested to just hear people's thoughts when they see something like that. So Quackfom, appreciate the super chat again. He said, just open another Scarlet and Violet box with his nephews. Got his 10th Merriam Special Illustrator rare. He's not complaining. Wow, man. I wouldn't be complaining either. You got 10 Merriam Special Arts. That's crazy, man. I'd be interested in Quack. What are you doing with those? Are you sending them to PSA or are you just sitting on them raw right now? Because there's always that question too of what will be the card that performs the best out of a set. And I think that will definitely be one of the cards that performs best out of Scarlet and Violet for into the future. I also there's a couple cards I like in Scarlet and Violet base, but yeah, I think it'll be hard to ever dethrone the Merriam as the ultimate chase. And even in the recent times, we have seen the big chase cards get dethroned. And I think the biggest obvious example of that is, the Rayquaza alternative art from Evolving Skies. That was the most expensive card. And then, yes, we've made it 39 minutes and 5 seconds into the video, and the card that overtook it was the Moonbreon. So it is possible to see those big chases get overtaken, but I think that would be one of those ones that probably holds that pretty strong. And there was a little while where Lost Origin, obviously the Giratina was the big chase card, and it always was able to stay in the lead, but then with the Aerodactyl and then Pokerev not being able to pull the card, just like we talked about Twice Baked Jake, influence in markets, Pokerev did the same thing whether he meant to or not. And he did it totally by accident because he just wasn't able to pull that card. But I think he actually put out a video today where he kind of looks back on that time and talks about like how crazy that was, that him not pulling that card was able to overnight like double the market cap for a card. Think about that. Might not sound crazy to people, but I want you to really think about that. One man in one live stream doubled the market cap of a card. That is a card that thousands of them exist. Especially, that is a card that's greater than $100. At least he made sure that card went to greater than $100. That's a huge change in market caps, you know, for one person to do that. Um, let's see. Alexander Lowe said, honest question. When you buy a collection and you resell it later piece by piece, how much do you calculate your cost basis for each card for tax purposes? I'm not a tax professional. You should reach out to your licensed tax professional for all tax-related questions. I think, actually, to be honest with you, to give you an honest answer to that question, I'm pretty sure Nick Old School Pokemon put out a video in the past talking about that exact scenario, talking about how he prices out his cards and how he factors in all the prices he has to pay for taxes. And I'm pretty sure he does it like right away. Muffin Swagger said, PK, wanted to apologize for ragging on you for the Terminator rant. Finally got around to watching it and loved it. I will now fully support future Terminator rants. Muffin Swagger, you telling me you went your entire life not seeing Terminator? Oh my god. Successfully, like, done a good thing with this channel. If I was able to push you to Terminator, man. But that's awesome. Yeah, people are saying Terminator 2 is goated. Yep. Cheval says Terminator 2. Drew second that. SDC said, my future self says thank you for going in big on Pokemon Battle Styles at $90 a booster box. Yeah, even Battle Styles at $90. What is Battle Styles selling at right now? You're still, you know, got a decent return on your money. Factor in shipping and fees. Like, sure, you're not going to be doing amazing. You're not going to be like doing Evolving Skies good, but you're still like very strong returns, man. Like, percentage wise, very good. So it's nothing to like knock. Yeah, Leaf Green Goblin saying, me neither. I'd like to see, yeah, Twice Baked Jake on Alive. Let's see. Leaf Green Goblin says he pumped those primes intentionally or not. I don't remember if Twice Baked Jake ever pumped primes. Did he? I must have missed that video. Coda said, the hype is there for the 151 set, but I can see it being a letdown for not living up to the current hype. For what I have seen so far, it's shaping out to be good. That Tangela is... Oh, I haven't seen the Tangela. Is the Tangela fire, though? I saw the Raichu. I was happy with the Raichu. Like I said, there's never been a bad Raichu, so... Jay Uncle says, hey PK, I have a question. I'm working on my master set of Crown Zenith and I'm looking for a lot of reverse hollows. Can you recommend how to source them? I'm looking at TCG Player, but shipping is tough. Yeah, so you can reach out. Let me think about this. You should reach out to some people. Like, reach out to people you know did mass openings or people that are doing like master sets of reverse hollows. Like Nick Old School Pokemon, he's doing master reverse hollow sets of all these sets now. Rattle Pokemon, if you're in the Rattle Pokemon Discord, reach out to him. Like, a lot of these guys probably have the reverse hollows you're looking for, and that's probably the way you want to go. Now, I don't want like everybody to like start blowing up Rattle's inbox trying to look for reverse hollows and stuff, but I mean, especially when you talk to a guy like Nick Old School Pokemon, like that's what he sells on eBay is reverse hollow sets and stuff like this, or common, uncommon sets, and these guys would love to just sell a couple of those to you. So you'll probably get cheaper than TCG Player prices. The shipping will be pretty good. That might be the way you want to go. Otherwise, you just have to like do big TCG player orders. There's no really way around it. Let's see. Pokimondo said, Twice Baked Jake semi put me on to tag team. Glad I watched one of his videos talking about a few years back, and that led him to start searching for one. Managed to get one last year, luckily. Cheval says, bought the Coco movie box with the gobbled up Pikachu promo. Yeah, it's like that Cramorant and Pikachu. That's a sick card. I'll tell you what, though. Sometimes Japanese gets their awesome promos, and then English just never does. And especially every Pikachu promo always slaps. You just, even recently, just think of like super, super modern promos. Japan got all the good promos. You know, like all the Pancha Pikachus. Forget about like the Mario and Luigi full art Pikachus, like beautiful cards. And then all the Scream Pikachu, or the Scream Pikachu, the Mimikyu, the Psyduck. Like, we just get robbed. It's almost never does English get a good promo. With the exception of one of the better promos we got was the special delivery Charizard. Like, really? Come on. That's it? They get Mario and Luigi full arts, and we get special delivery Charizard. And then I guess in the UK they got that on the ball Pikachu and Sobble and Score Bunny and all those. Like, sure, they got like the on the ball Pikachus, but man, we get shafted all the time as English collectors opposed to these Japanese promos. And yeah, that Coco movie was a good one. And that box was actually pretty cool too. Oh, that's it too. When you talk about just the boxes, talk about sealed collecting, all Japanese boxes are so much better. And like even the Chinese boxes like these, like that's the Charizard, the Umbreon, and the Blastoids, like the Chinese 25th anniversary special collection boxes, like even those are so much nicer. Like I guess we, down there at the bottom, we got this Charizard UPC, which is pretty sweet, but we're robbed all the time. It's just not fair. Pokey Snipe says, I think my favorite guess was TCG drops pure positivity on his end, and even without a face behind the camera, you could feel everything he was trying to convey. Yeah, TCG drops, he's a good one, man. He has some really cool stories. I wish he was able to tell a little bit more than he did on the live, but it is what it is. But yeah, he's helped, I would say, when it comes to just saving people money in this hobby. TCG drops, if you were to like equate a dollar amount to that, has to be in the hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars. And especially what a account like TCG drops on Twitter did during the booms of booms and the height of heights is he helped a lot of new collectors navigate this hobby, because one of the hardest things to do in 2020, 2021 was just navigate this hobby and being able to just source product. Sourcing product in 2020 and 2021 was so impossibly hard, and he gave like everyone like level playing fields, and especially when things that were relatively new to this hobby like bots and stuff. When bots started coming in, it really hurt this hobby, but people like TCG drops were the only thing keeping people even kind of in the game. And even somebody like me who was very used to buying product, I wasn't used to sourcing product in like the scalper's paradise dream situation that we were in. So even a guy like TCG drops even helped me out a ton picking up product. And I still to this day only was able to get one Celebrations UPC at MSRP. I bought it on bestbuy.com, and the only reason I was even able to get that Best Buy order was because of him, Pokemon TCG drops. And if it wasn't for him, I would probably only own 0 Celebrations UPCs. Or I would have had to go on the secondary market and pay probably what would have been like greater than $250. So he saved me money alone. And especially when some of these really crazy Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs went up, especially like the Evolutions ones, it was because of tweets like him that I was able to pick up my Evolutions Evolving Skies Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, and those have done really well. Same thing with my Chill and Rain ETBs have done really good post Pokemon Center exclusives. Uh, let's see. Pariah Pokemon West Bragg said, "Did you all get your Illustrator winter promos from Pokemon Center?" Yes, I did. Those are actually doing really well too. It's crazy. Sometimes when listen, Pokemon throws you bones sometimes. That was one of those bones they do. Any those Illustrator promos were a bone. But the only thing was, as opposed to like the special delivery Charizard promos where you had to spend $20, with these Illustrator contest promos, you had to spend $30. So you did have to spend a little bit more. But even that, those people bought it those. So you got Law in the chat. Good to see you, Law. Yeah, Tom B said, find a seller who's selling a ton of them. He does it all the time. It's not that hard to find on TCG Player. So yeah, what Tom B is saying is if you're running into shipping issues, if you have one seller, usually it'll be like free shipping after $5. So yeah, if you find one seller that's selling a lot of the cards you're looking for, you can just buy them all from them. The only problem is sometimes when you run into that one seller, like they might not be lowest price on TCG Player. So then that's where you just have to figure out like, okay, I spend greater than $5 with this guy, I get free shipping. You got to make the numbers work for yourself and figure out the math and see if it's worth it. So, but yeah, that's Tom B. That's really good advice. Yeah, people are trying to say how to like source the more bulkier reverse hollows. PokeKid96, appreciate it. He said, I hope the newborn is healthy and brings lots of joy and excitement to your family. Appreciate that, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty nervous, but I'm looking forward to it. I only reason I'm nervous is because I know it's like those sleepless nights and stuff. Oh, I'm gonna take 2 weeks off, and my wife's got like whatever 12 weeks or 3 months, so it's good that she'll be able to be with the baby and stuff. But those 4 a.m. wake ups and stuff, it gets to you. It beats you down like mentally. Pariah Pokemon West Bragg said, PK, think about how the Japanese people feel when they can't get the promos like the employees only set/cards. LL, yeah. Australian Blastoise in the chat. Let's see Australian Blastoise. So Fresh Tat says, people aren't talking about Celebrations UPC reprint, hopefully. Evolving Skies is next. So I don't think anybody's talking about Celebrations UPCs being reprinted right now in May 2023. That was a good conversation when people were talking about that, though. And it was one of those things like, why didn't they reprint it? Maybe the metal cards, and then the Charizard UPC came out, and it was like, well, they could have printed a lot of these UPCs if they wanted to, because we saw it happen with the Charizard UPCs. And then even the Arceus ones at GameStop, like those GameStop exclusive promos, there was a ton of those. If anybody wanted it, I should put it that way. If you wanted that Arceus UPC from GameStop, you had an option. In fact, those things, some of them were like fire sealed on GameStop.com. I picked mine up at pre-order at $99.99, but they ended up like dropping as low as $79.99. So there was even sales on GameStop if you're patient. Again, coming off the Celebrations UPCs and how underprinted they were, I didn't know. I just spent the $99, and that thing hasn't really done anything for me since I ordered at pre-release. So it is what it is. Yeah, PokeSnipe says, PK, you're gonna have to up your booster box count once a newborn comes. Yeah, when's I want to say it's like June, early June 5th or something is the next set. Paldea Evolve comes out, and right now I've pre-ordered 2 of those booster boxes, so I might end up having to get a third one just in order to finish, get one of each booster box. Because if anybody out there doesn't know, I buy one of every modern booster box for my son. So when he grows up, we call it his dowry. So when he grows up, hopefully by the time he's 18 or 21, he'll have one of every single booster box for the next 18 years. So when he gets older, not retires, gets out of college, like he could do what he wants with them. He could sell them, maybe open them, whatever. He could display them if he's really big into Pokemon. I have no clue. But then when people always say, like, what do you think about the long term of this hobby? I'm like, what do you think about the long term of sealed product and stuff like this? I'm like, well, I am buying one of every booster box for my son, so I don't think it's going to crash. So, but then, whatever. There's always that conversation. Uh, Justin Deere says, has anyone ever seen poker card with Eevee and Pikachu as Joker cards saying made in Taiwan, but say pocket monsters in the back and they're super vintage? You're not talking about like the blue or red decks, the 99. I don't know which ones you're talking about. Cheval says 2 weeks of parental leave is sad, coming from a Canadian perspective, but hey, you'll become bloody-eyed as soon as you hear the word tax, yeah. All right, I did it. Kind of made it to the bottom of the chat. I skipped a bunch of videos, and I said it. I said I was going to make this video last for 30 minutes, and here we are at the 56-minute mark. Oh, well, I tried. Listen, guys, as always, appreciate every single one of you. If you could do me one favor before you turn off this video, if you just hit that like button. If you don't want to hit that like button, that's fine too. That's the only thing I ever ask for. Well, unless you're new to this channel and you're just finding this channel for the first time, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I do a lot of these lives. I shoot for, at a minimum, 2 a week. My ideal sweet spot is I like to do 3 a week. And if I get real lucky, do the 4 a week. But 2 is the minimum. 3 is what I'm shooting for. And 4 is, I feel really good about myself. All right, guys. But as always, appreciate every single one of you. And I'll catch you on the next video.